As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. I was born into freedom in a wonderful land of mountains and plains, rivers and lakes. Forever American is what I am. A past as rich as any can be. My father's worked hard to give this to me. I love this place I come from. To live another way I cannot foresee. As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American.
Well, welcome, everybody. How you guys doing tonight? Welcome to Real News Live. Hi, Rodney. Hi, Nana. Hi, BK. Hi, Luke. Hi, BK. I already said BK. Hi, Susan. Thank you, BK Boom, for that donation of $15. Definitely appreciate that. Every penny helps, of course, as we go forward. Hi, Susan. I know I'm forgetting some people. Oh, Jeff, you're in here. Karen, how you doing tonight? Somebody else. Okay. Anyways, hit that share button. Make sure you get this out to people so we can see what's actually happening out there. Because the world is, of course, going crazy. Biden should be already impeached, much less in prison at this point. But still nothing happening. We got that going on. And, of course, the shakeup with NATO. NATO's meeting, of course, coming up on the 11th through the 12th on their summit, bringing Ukraine into the fold of NATO. That would cause World War III, but we'll talk about that more. Of course, what's going on in the world and everything happening at once. Of course, we've got 4th of July weekend. Hopefully everybody's enjoying that coming up, 4th of July. And, yeah, it's a pretty nice day out, hot. Most, of course. Yeah, France has fallen. They fell last night. We were talking about that last night. It's only gotten worse since then. Of course, the United States media is not keeping up with it and not showing you what's happening. And that's not a surprise at this point. We've came to know that we will not get the truth out of our media here in the United States anymore. I mean, it's sad. Biden wants to block everything. Biden wants to do a lot of stuff. But what if Biden goes to prison instead of Trump? Wouldn't that be a wonderful revelation? Of course, liberals would be yelling sacrilege. Of course, stating that former President Trump, Biden, or Donald Trump, has legal issues engulfing him. But yet, legal issues surrounding Trump have a lot more to do with the Presidential Record Act than the crimes that they are trying to charge him with. And I have a feeling we'll see a lot more of that once, of course, the case gets going. And the judge might actually dismiss these charges that were filed against him in Florida. Wouldn't be a surprise to me. But the narrative of Biden going to prison is a pretty likely scenario. Say suddenly you are an advisor to President Biden or a Democratic National Committee, trying to honestly assess the growing negative stories and allegations and alleged evidence swirling around Biden and his son. It may seem the walls are closing in. Negative stories, of course, and the evidence that the House Oversight Committee chairman have been bringing to light in the existence of the FBI form detailing information from the informant that claimed Burisma executive paid $5 million bribes to then Vice President Biden and his son. Of course, the new evidence, such as Chuck Grassley's revealing that the FBI redacted parts of the executives saying that he had 17 audio recording conversations of Joe and Hunter Biden. The evidence, of course, coming from Republicans' House Ways and Means Committee and releasing testimony of two IRS whistleblowers accusing the Justice Department of interfering in the investigation with the aims to protect Hunter Biden. Of course, testimony included in July 30th WhatsApp text allegations showing Hunter Biden threatening Chinese business partners. If you're sitting there and you're a Democrat trying to look at this partisanly and trying to do what you can to get him off, you're looking at a very, very slim chance. Now, of course, Democrats are saying Trump's the one in legal jeopardy, not our guy. Who cares? It's nonsense. But is Trump in legal jeopardy? Or does the power of the presidency actually allow him to do what he did? Those are extreme questions because the law points to one way. You know, President's Record Act was written after all these other laws, and it says it supersedes them. And the cracks appearing in the stories of Biden, of course, and Hunter Biden himself are dramatically weakening the foundation of Democratic supporters. Mainstream media and Democratic Party are still salivating at the thought of Trump going to prison. But Biden could be the tale we hear in the next few months. It's pretty crazy to watch. Hunter Biden, of course, reaching a settlement in Arkansas today on his paternity suit. President's son has reached a settlement with his child support case after a month-long legal battle, stating he didn't have any money. We all know that's not true. Arkansas state court stepped in, and the paternity suit over the child he had with a woman named Lundell Roberts. It's unclear whether his updated payment or what his updated payment will be, as we know right now, because the information is redacted. I'm sure it'll leak sometime soon. But of course, he was ordered last month to sit for a deposition under oath and answer questions about his finances. He also asked for child support payments to be reduced after he reached an original settlement. So he's not making as much money, even though he is? I don't understand. His settlement amount was much lower, $20,000 per month, supposedly is what he was paying. But for the income he was listing, it was nothing compared to the percentage that he should have been paying. This is ridiculous. Once again, slipping through the cracks. And the president himself, after the Supreme Court vetoed his student loan forgiveness, Biden is trying again. White House is finalizing a new student loan proposal hours after Supreme Court struck down the ambition plans for forgiveness in the first place. And Biden again pledging that there will be still more to come. I don't see how he's going to do that, of course, if he loses the office and ends up in prison, but we'll see. Administration, of course, is looking for other avenues to give borrowers a break. The effects will be noticeably smaller, at least for individual borrowers. Biden vowed yesterday that the person to pursue a new path of debt relief. Department of Education has initiated but acknowledged that it's going to take a lot longer if he even gets a plan through. And it has to get congressional approval. Right now, he's not going to get that in the House or nor the Senate. So how he plans on doing this, we don't know. Of course, the revamp of the income-driven repayment program finalized yesterday to reduce many borrowers' monthly payment obligations will eventually result in some degree of loan forgiveness down the road, eventually. If, of course, this gets approved in the House and Congress once again. Of course, this is the least of our concerns. The biggest concern that we should be looking at right now, even though we could lose our president, oh, big deal. He could end up in prison. Ukraine and NATO. Let's talk about this because NATO, of course, has a summit coming up on the 11th and the 12th. Ukraine wants to join NATO, and NATO's looking for ways to guarantee securities for Ukraine in the summit. Of course, NATO wants to receive an invitation and to begin the process of joining NATO at the summit next month, of course, but President Zelensky will not attend if leaders do not show courage, according to him. The president also said on Thursday, he's a joke, I'm serious. The chief diplomats and advisors already told that if Kiev wanted the July 11th and 12th summit meeting to deliver a response to the application for NATO membership filed on September 30th last year, that they have to show up. They're not going to send an invitation to somebody that's going to cause more problems for them in the long run, but yet now heavily guarded conversations are coming out that it recognizes that it cannot join NATO while Russia is waging war on Ukraine. But they can start the process and allow guarantees to Ukraine, even though Russia is still invading and demonstrating invasion. But is that a worthy NATO mission? Because they're being invaded by Russia? It's also shown it's already a key part of the transatlantic security problem. But the problem is allowing Ukraine to join NATO at any point, much less at no point it should ever happen. If NATO were to join Russia, guaranteed nuclear war. Because joining NATO means Ukraine would then have access to nuclear weapons. All they would do is have to request them, and we would provide them. That's, of course, part of NATO's alliance. Of course, then Zelensky could turn around and use them on Russia and cause World War III. Well, either way, that would end up that way. Because Russia will not allow it to get that far. That's a red line that nobody wants to be crossed. Nobody wants nuclear war. Nobody wants nuclear fallout. But as we're watching our world leaders, as NATO is dissolving around us, it's not a question. NATO is having serious problems with its own inner fighting. We got France falling apart from its own debt problems and policing problems. Ukraine, of course, getting new missiles from British cruise missiles. The ultra-precise British cruise missile has been Storm Shadow missile has been letting Kiev hit Russian targets at a much greater distance. Now, new missiles, of course, are being issued to Ukraine, longer-range British cruise missiles. Problems everywhere. Germany, one of NATO's key members, is at odds with British pressures to approve, of course, production of the Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets, and you never guess, to Saudi Arabia. That has now partnered with China and their alliances, of course, with Iran and everybody else. So Germany does not want this Eurofighter Typhoon fighter to go to Saudi Arabia, but the rest of NATO is trying to push for it. 48 jets. 48 jets would be sent to Saudi Arabia if this goes through. Of course, Russian ties or German ties to NATO are slipping away anyways because they don't like what NATO's doing. We're watching, of course, the United States, France, and Britain all taking tougher approaches to what's happening in NATO. So we know Saudi Arabia has partnered with China. That's not a question, and Russia. We know much of the Middle East has at this point. Ukraine wants to join NATO. NATO wants Ukraine to join. They can't let them in until the war is over, but they can give them security alliance guarantees. Sounds like a little bit crazy. U.S. sending cluster munitions to Ukraine. Cluster munitions are supposed to be banned from war. At least that's what the Geneva Convention says. Didn't we sign that? Oh, we did. Who cares about violating international law? The international courts is actually a joke, as we know. Nothing's happened to Putin over violating international law. But we got more to watch. Japan, of course, says it's seen Russian warships spotted near Taiwan and the Okinawa Islands. That's not the only thing. Defense Minister not just spotted 2 Russian Navy ships in the waters near Taiwan, but there's been several other sightings this week. Of course, Russian fighters and Russian freighters off the eastern coast sent an aircraft and ships have been trying to keep watch. China is, of course, flying 11 fighters into the airspace of Taiwan Straits median line today. Something's happening. I mean, forces are moving. U.S. forces are moving as well, if you haven't noticed. Some reservist members have been called up to serve in positions that seem mundane right now, like Guam and other places. But why are we getting this joint war readiness happening? We know China has been war ready for a while now, with battleships of cruising around Taiwan. This could lead directly to us entering World War III. And if this doesn't happen, the sad thing is, the 11th, there's no question, if NATO decides Ukraine is joining NATO, or we give them any kind of security alliance guarantees, it's over. I hope you're prepared. I hope you have stuff stocked up, because shit's going to hit the fan really quick. If you don't understand that, it's going to be big problems, not just for the U.S., but for the world as a whole. Sad to say. But seeing stuff shape up and Russia getting prepared with China over a Taiwan issue makes me think Russia's prepared for what they have to do in Ukraine. Of course, security guarantees are given to Ukraine by NATO. I think Russia's ready to take the hit. And this should be scary. You should be ready and prepared for anything to happen at this point. From corrupt governments around the country, around the world at this point, all pushing to the same unique goal: destruction and demolishing of any kind of union the United States wants to have, or NATO. Watching blackouts of media. We're not able to see what's happening in France, but we know it's being destroyed. It's ridiculous. The Navy wasn't the Coast Guard. They didn't want any ships going down to the crash site. And we'll get into that one, of course, when more information comes out. But there is some information about the crash that I will say is very suspicious. The pieces that did come out of the water when they were actually offloading them on the dock had big pieces of paper or white plastic covering them with tape on certain parts of the exterior of the craft. There wouldn't be blood or guts on there. There's no reason for them to do that. But if you look at the interior of that same panel, you can see that there's a heavy indentation right there. Now, what caused that indentation? Because it was not an implosion. I don't care what they're saying right now. If you ever seen an implosion on a craft, you do not have pieces that large still existing without any major damage besides indentations that we know. Well, from what we're spectating right now, can't say we know. looks like the craft was attacked by something. That's all I'm going to say so far because we don't have more information. We're trying to get more images, of course, without plastic on there. But there was not an implosion on that ship. There wasn't. The weakest point was that window in the front of the ship. We know that window was intact. And when it was recovered, that window was intact, and it was the weakest point of the entire ship. Submersible, whatever you want to call it. So we will be looking more into this, of course, as more details come out, and we can get pictures because I know there's pictures that are going to be given out or leaked. So yeah, it would crash like a soda can, right? Cause the high pressure oxygen inside would have caused an explosion after the implosion, causing those debris pieces to be much smaller instead of having major pieces still intact. But the biggest thing to watch is what's going to happen with this NATO meeting on the 11th and the 12th as NATO summit begins. And are they going to bring Ukraine into the fold? We don't know. We know that indictments on Trump are bogus at this point. We know that there's so much cover-up going on with the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden story. But it looks like charges will come forward. We'll see. And what Democrats are going to do, if they lose Joe Biden, I don't know, because they won't have anybody to run for this next election. So the ugly presidency that we're watching unfold right now, and the BS about the Wagner Group and Russia, or Putin fighting with the Wagner Group, it is pure BS. The Wagner Group is not fighting with Putin, not fighting with other members, besides directly with the Russian military leader, or one of the Russian military leaders, which they've been fighting for long before this war has started in Ukraine. So I want to make sure I say that very punditly because U.S. media is obviously blasting this whole Wagner Group dissent and everything else, saying that it's the end, showing the weakness of Russia. It's all a great distraction for what is coming. It is a great distraction, so be prepared. But God bless you guys. God bless America. I know I'm being short tonight. Thank you once again, BK, for that $15 donation. Only donation we received last month, but we greatly appreciate every penny we do receive. God bless you. God bless America. And let's take Biden to prison. That's where he should be. Biden should be in prison along with his son, his brother, and everybody else involved in that scandal. But God bless you all. God bless America. And let's save it. If we have to step up, it means it's our time. Good night.